You are listening to Unified Through Chronic and Mental Illness with your hosts, Angie Roberts and Kimberly Murphy. Please be advised that some of the topics of this podcast can be triggering and sensitive in nature.
The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention says suicide is the second leading cause of death in teens, with rates increasing up to 56% in the last decade. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in adults, with 4 out of 5 of them being men. In 2018, there were 1.4 million suicide attempts.
Welcome to Unified. My name is Kimberly, and today's topic is suicide awareness. Angie, is there a single cause for suicide?
There is no single cause for suicide. Suicide most often occurs when stressors and health issues combine to create an experience of hopelessness and despair. The risk factors for suicide are mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, PTSD, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and many more. Substance use problems, personality traits of aggression, mood changes, and poor relationships. Serious physical health conditions, including pain issues, which I can understand that. I have fibromyalgia, and I have actually been hurting to the point before that I didn't want to live any longer. So that one hits home. Prolonged stress, such as harassment and bullying. I was bullied all through school. It was horrible. It was really hard. Stressful life events, exposure to another person's suicide, previous suicide attempts, family history of suicide, child abuse, neglect, or trauma. So, Kimberly, have you had any issues with suicidal ideations or suicidal tendencies?
So, I can remember being depressed as young as 5 years old, and I did have thoughts of suicide throughout traumatic times in my life, but it really wasn't alarming until I became chronically depressed as I was getting sicker with lupus. The doctor needed to treat my depression before I could get a real diagnosis, but during that time, I truly believed that my family would be better off without me. Ultimately, that I would be doing them a favor once they were relieved of the burden I had become to them, and they would eventually heal and move on to have a better life. I had one attempt with medication, and when that didn't work, I began searching for painless methods on the internet. With the support of my husband and a few close friends, I was finally able to ask for help. But it was really difficult, even though I knew the situation was dire, and I ultimately couldn't trust myself to keep myself safe. I was still afraid to reach out, but I did have a doctor I trusted, so I did finally get the help I needed, and the difference is incredible for me so far. I'm really grateful that I'm still here. Depression is a great liar, and all those feelings of despair, worthlessness, and emotional pain, they can be relieved, and you can come out of that dark hole that feels impossible to climb out of once you're in it.
Kim, what are some behaviors that might indicate that someone is suicidal?
Well, something to look out for when you're worried that someone might be suicidal is a change in their behavior or the presence of entirely new behaviors. So, this is the sharpest concern if the new or changed behavior is related to painful events, a loss, or a change. Most people who take their lives exhibit one or more of the warning signs, either through what they say or what they do. So, if a person talks about killing themselves, that's obviously something you want to take seriously. A lot of people are like, well, they're just trying to get attention. Always take it seriously. Um,
Always.
if someone talks about feeling hopeless, having no reason to live, being a burden to others, which I can relate to because that was my biggest issue when I was feeling that way, is that I was a burden to other people. Feeling trapped, being in unbearable pain, and usually that's like they just want to escape their pain. They don't necessarily want to die, but they see no other way out of it. Um, a warning sign Could also be behaviors that signal risk, especially if it's related to a painful event, loss, or change, like increased use of alcohol and drugs surrounding like a painful event, somebody died, or maybe they just got into a divorce, something like that, and now they're using drugs and alcohol more often than ever before. They're looking for a way to end their lives, such as searching online for methods. That's a huge one. If you see that, or if you're doing that yourself, that's when you definitely need to get help.
It's a red flag.
Withdrawing from activities, things that they normally love to do, they just don't feel like doing them anymore. Isolating from family and friends, sleeping too much or too little, visiting or calling people to say goodbye. And sometimes it's not so like outright, like they'll just say things to you that you haven't heard them say to you in a while, like really deep conversations, or they start to give you things that, giving away prized possessions. I want you to have this.
Those are
Maybe
big
they're,
red flags
yeah, they
too.
are. Yeah, they are. And being more aggressive, and heavy fatigue. So those are some things to look out for. Another warning sign is their mood. So if they're considering suicide, they might be depressed, they might have anxiety. We talked about loss of interest already, irritability, humiliation or shame, agitation and anger, relief or sudden improvement. Now, the last one happens more often than not. Like, at least I've heard a lot of people say that the person that they lost to suicide was kind of sullen and depressed, and then all of a sudden they had this lift in mood. So they're like, I really thought things were better because they seem so much happier. And
Right.
it's because they have made a decision and they're relieved and they're carrying out a plan. So if someone's going through that for a long time and then all of a sudden out of nowhere with no therapy or indication, or just suddenly they're so much happier, that could be a warning sign as well.
I started with anxiety at probably 12. That's when my dad had his mental break and, was stalking us and stuff. I think I talked about that in the last episode. And then things started changing when I turned about 13 or 14. My mom got a boyfriend, and it's like she really didn't have a lot to do with me. And um my dad, it's just like it was like my whole life had changed, and I was really angry, and I was punching walls, and I actually would cut myself, and I would do things like that. But then it got so bad that I would just start writing letters to my friends because I was ready to just end my life. I just didn't know what to do anymore. I was just so miserable because I was bullied all through school, and it's just there was so many things that all led up to everything, I think, that I just was very overwhelmed with life and couldn't take it. And being 14, 15, 16, whatever, it was really hard. But I've still had trouble with it up till a year, well, no, not a year ago. Let's see, about 3 months ago, because I had gotten pregnant and I had to go off on my medicines, and I was nursing and I could only go on so many medicines. And so finally now we are back on all my medicines, and I'm feeling so much better. But I've had to go in and stay at um a mental institution quite a few times, and I kind of wanted to touch on that process because it's not you go in and you go to the hospital, and this is how you do it in Michigan. Everywhere is kind of different. So you go in, and you see the regular doctor, and the regular doctor decides if you are if you're making a plan to commit suicide, or they really think that you are a harm to yourself or someone else. Then they will send you over to the psychiatric hospital, where everything starts all over again. But it's just, with evaluations and, everything. But it's really, the people there are really not bad. It's not as bad as you think. Usually people are grouped in kind of like on different floors of severity. So it's not as scary as people really think.
That's good to know because I think they are afraid to relinquish their freedom and get help.
It is hard to relinquish your freedom, and you do have to, because there's so much stuff that you can't take with you. But the alternative is, what's the alternative? I mean, so getting the help is wonderful. It's a good thing to do. Most places the people are very caring, and that they have chosen the mental health field for a reason. My longtime friend from school and suicide awareness advocate. Welcome to Unified, Carly Marx. We are so happy to have you today.
Thanks, ladies. I'm happy to be here. I really am excited to use this platform to spread some awareness and just let people know that there are options out there for them. Kind of like Kimberly was saying, I liked her statement when it said, when she said, seek treatment, try the treatment, because, there are just so many options, and, there are programs and people that want to help you. I am really into a program at the AFSP.org, the American Suicide Prevention, the Out of the Darkness Walks. It brings survivors together, and they do it every year. And I think last year there were around 5,000 people.
Right. It needs to be more, though.
Yes, it needs to be more. And every year it's a little bit bigger, but, start slow, but, marching in solidarity, and it gives people a real chance to, remember their loved ones. And this weekend is really special to me because we're celebrating the 5th year anniversary of my brother-in-law's death. He took his own life on August 28th, and we buried him on Memorial or Labor Day weekend. And so this weekend's, always a time for me to reflect and be appreciative and want to help people reach out and know that there's a cause. People that are struggling, and there are so many different reasons for the way that you feel. Kimberly, you hit on something that I struggled with being a stay-at-home mom, is the isolation and once you get in a depressive state, taking care of your family is so hard, and then it's like a vicious cycle. You get into that negative speak and that negative talk, and and that's my experience. I know that Doug suffered from a lot of mental issues, and he did seek therapy, and they did try to put him on some medication, but that just wasn't the avenue that he wanted. And had I had the tools to help him seek the correct treatment, and that's my one regret, because he lived with us at the time, and the warning signs were there, and I just didn't have the tools. And so I urge people, even if you don't know somebody that is struggling, go to their website, the AFSP.org, and just look at the resources that they have and become aware of what to tell people. It could be even a stranger, like just you overhear a conversation with them struggling, and, don't be afraid to approach them and let them know that there are people out there that want to help, and give them the phone numbers and let them know the talk to text line, and, just spread that. Because had I had the right tools, I think I would have hoped things would be differently. I can't say that they would have, but they might have been.
You never know.
You never know. That's right. I do want to bring attention to World Suicide Prevention Day. It is September the 10th. National Suicide Prevention Week starts next week, September 6th through 12th. And it's just, raising awareness. I was telling you girls about a sticker challenge that I do. I ordered some bulk stickers online and I pass them out two at a time to people, and I try to open up a conversation and give them a chance to pass one out and open up a conversation. Or if they happen to know somebody that's struggling, they can just, hand them the sticker with a suicide hotline number on it. So there's lots of ways that you can help. It's just taking the time to educate yourself.
Right. That is so true. Education is key, and people that don't have mental illness but know people who have mental illness really also need to think about they could save somebody else's life by being educated.
I'm curious, Carly, what stickers are you talking about? And is there a place that we can go to get them ourselves?
So it's bootleg.com, I believe. I should have written it down because I just Google searched it like a couple of days ago. It was a Grateful Dead logo that I had seen online, and I just kind of randomly searched it out. But it's a bootlegsticker.com or bootleg.com, and you can log on there, and it's a Grateful Dead. Grateful Dead Steal Your Face, and it says "Do not fade away," and it gives the suicide hotline number. But I noticed on the afsp.org, I noticed on their website that they have sticker packs now that you can hand out. And I think there was a bulk one of like 25. I'm not sure the price, but, you can go on there and you can log on and you can buy bulk stickers, bulk bracelets. They have postcards that you can send, letterheads that you can send or pass out. They have pocket brochures that you can hand out. So there's just so many different things that you can go on there and do where, they've really revamped their website the last couple of years. All of that stuff is really new. And so and that's why I really like to advocate for that. And I just want you to know that one person can really make a difference. After my brother-in-law passed away, I really strived to find something that I could do. And so joining the Out of the Darkness walks, we've been doing that the last 5 years. And normally I really fundraise a lot with that. And all I do is really share it on my social media. And to this day, I've raised about $2,500. And I'm
Oh,
super,
wow, that's wonderful.
super proud of that because it goes towards the community, the colleges and our chapters here in Arkansas. It funds them and their research. And so, one person really can make a difference over a course of time. And so that's why I just want people to know that it can be you, you can make a difference.
Carly, would you mind telling us a little bit about how did it affect your family after Doug's passing? I kind of do you mind to touch on that a little bit?
Not at all. It was devastating.
Right.
Completely and utterly devastating. I think a lot of that is the guilt that you feel because he was living with my husband and I at the time. And we didn't have the tools at the moment, but he left an ex-wife. He left a daughter. She was about 13 at the time of his death, which my son is about 13 right now. So I couldn't imagine, the grief that she feels. But honestly, 5 years later, it's still really hard for his parents to have a conversation about it. I sought therapy afterwards, and so it's a lot easier for me to talk about it because I did have an outlet that was comfortable. And some people, that is just not the avenue that they want to go down. I've tried to get my husband to go talk about it, but he just doesn't feel like that's an option for him. That's not his style. So I try to be a listener to him. I try to not to problem solve, but if he wants to talk about it, I try to just let him have the floor and just listen
I
to
think
his
it's a lot harder for men. I do
Oh my
believe
gosh,
it's a lot
yes.
harder for men. Yeah.
But it was devastating. I mean, it was a crux in my marriage. Of course, it was something that we had to struggle through. My husband's not someone who reaches out and asks for help, and he doesn't want a shoulder to cry on, and he doesn't want you pitying him. And, it's just those things that we mourn so differently that it was hard for us to connect on that. And so it was a very difficult time, very difficult. We still struggle to talk about it, like I said, with his parents. And me, I'm, an open book when it comes to that. And I try to respect them, and not have a conversation with them about it. And, they don't really have a lot to do with the fundraising, and, it's just really difficult for them, and I honestly can't say that I know how they feel, because even though we weren't blood related, he was still my brother, but losing a child like that has just got to be so devastating. I want to make a point of that too, though, is because when Doug reached out to me, I said I didn't have the tools. But honestly, I feel like even if you just listen to the person, even if you just, you guys said something about on your first podcast about, how when you finally found a doctor and felt heard, I think just them feeling like they have a voice and somebody knows what they're feeling without trying to fix their own, without giving them advice to fix the problem. They just want to be heard. And,
It is a lot like that. Yeah.
and just let them know that you understand. Even though you might not understand, that you understand that, they're struggling,
They
and
have an issue,
and it's a real
right?
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
I mean, it meant a lot to me because finally I felt like truly heard. A lot of times I think people are afraid to tell their friends or people they know because they're afraid of seeming like, I'm attention seeking. Even if it is something that they're not planning on doing yet, if they're saying they're going to do it, they need some sort of help.
Yes. Well, to be really frank, I've had two of my family members reach out to me in the last couple of months with the severe suicidal depression. And so just being able to coax them and let them know that they've been heard and say, hey, you really need to talk to somebody. You really need to seek out this phone number. And, I was very proud of one of my family members that reached out and called the suicide hotline. And what I really liked about that was that they would call him periodically every couple of days and make sure that he was okay. So just them, you know, just knowing somebody's going to reach out to you and make sure that you're okay. Yeah, I mean, it's very reassuring to know that when you give them that number, they really do care. They really will, go the lengths and reach out day after day and just make sure that, that person has a little bit of hope, because this tiniest amount of hope is all you need, the tiniest amount of hope. Just a thread that somebody cares and that somebody's going to look after you, and that, that you mean something and you matter, because you do.
Right.
And I have to say, I wish I had known someone like you, Carly, when I was going through it, because I mean, just to know all of this would have been amazing. And anyone who's listening, I'm sure, is going to feel a little bit more confident about reaching out to those sources of help.
Yes. I would hope that it wouldn't be a second thought. I would hope your life would matter enough to reach out and, you know, and try different avenues. If the first time doesn't work, then it just wasn't your cup of tea. There are so many different avenues that need to be, addressed when it's to that level, when you're that depressed and the pain is just so overwhelming. Maybe the first try isn't going to help. Maybe the second try isn't going to help, but sometimes it takes a minute, and eventually you will find the avenue that leads you back to your happy.
Right. I agree.
And it's not hopeless. I know that is the main, for me, it was the main feeling. I know it is for a lot of people who have talked to me when they were in that situation too, is the hopelessness.
Yes.
Just the
Yes.
hopelessness that it will ever be better. And it can get so much better. It really can.
Yes, it can, and it will. And I'm not one to bring spirituality into a lot of conversations, but I really think, personally, it helped me a lot in my struggles. I think it's also something that my brother-in-law struggled with, so I think, you know, I would encourage people to, get some faith in their life, whatever that might be. There's so many different avenues with that as well. But just reach out and find somebody that you can, build some faith on, and, get some good out of the world.
Absolutely.
Whatever your higher power may be, or whoever,
Right.
whatever.
I think it really connects to the
Yeah.
whole idea too, like when you're really stuck in your despair, sometimes one of the best things to do is to step outside yourself and put your faith in something else outside of yourself. They say that a lot to people who have addictions, to just get out of your own head for a bit and serve something else. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely gives you hope, but it also gives you purpose. So
Right. Yeah. I did want to mention that the afsp.org, if you go and follow their Facebook page and their Instagram, they have inspirational messages. They have resources that are unlimited on a daily basis. And they're doing this really cool thing right now. It's called Hope in the Mailbox. And you just log on there, click the little mailbox link that they have, type in your friend's address, and you can get, you know, somebody that you feel is struggling, or just because, have a postcard sent to them, that ups their day and well wishes, and gives them hope. It's basically stamped with hope on the postcard. So that, I really think that's great. I've sent a couple of those out, so log on and do that.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If you're finding yourself in need of help, you can always call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-873-8255 or text TALK, TALK, to 741-741.
And I did want to let you guys know that the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. If you're a veteran, just press 1 and that'll take you right to the veterans line.
Our mantra for the week is, if you are struggling today, remember this: you have survived everything you've gone through up until this point. The best day of your life is yet to come. There are still people you haven't met. There are things you haven't experienced. You can do this. And remember, it's okay not to be okay, and we are stronger together.
Yes, we are. If anyone would like to reach out, you can always message us at any of our media pages listed on anchor.fm unified. And if any of you have felt triggered by this topic, we would like to close with a 2-minute meditation.